If you're just getting started with stacking silver, stop what you're doing right now. Because what I'm about to show you could save you from making the same costly mistakes that thousands of new stackers make every single month. And I'm not talking about small mistakes. I'm talking about errors that can cost you hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars before you even realize what's happening. See, there's this trap that almost every beginner falls into. And the worst part? The people selling you silver won't tell you about it. Your local coin shop won't mention it. The big online dealers certainly aren't going to warn you, because frankly, they profit when you don't know any better. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Mike. Mike's a real person, though I've changed his name. He came to me 6 months after he started stacking, and he was frustrated, really frustrated. He'd spent over $15,000 building what he thought was a solid silver position. He'd been watching YouTube videos, reading forums, doing what he thought was research. And on paper, everything looked good. He had weight, he had ounces, he had silver. But here's what Mike didn't have. He didn't have liquidity, he didn't have flexibility. And when he actually tried to sell some of his stack to take advantage of a price spike, he discovered something that made his stomach drop. The premium he'd paid to acquire his silver, he was never getting that back, not even close. Mike had fallen into what I call the premium trap. And before we go any further, let me be crystal clear about something. This isn't about whether you should stack silver or not. Silver is an incredible wealth preservation tool. It's real money. It's been money for 5,000 years, and it'll be money long after the dollar is gone. This is about how you stack. Because the difference between stacking smart and stacking blind can literally be the difference between building real wealth and just accumulating expensive paperweights. Now, before I break down exactly what this trap is and how to avoid it, I want to mention something quickly. I've put together a free guide that covers the wealth protection strategies that thousands of American retirees are using right now. It's in the description below. No cost, no obligation, just real information that can help you protect what you've worked your whole life to build. Grab it if you want it. It's there for you. All right, let's get into this. The premium trap works like this. You're new to silver. You're excited. You've done some research. You understand why silver is important. And you're ready to start stacking. So you go online or you walk into a coin shop and you start looking at what's available. And this is where it gets interesting. You see generic rounds at one premium. You see government-issued coins at a higher premium. You see special edition pieces, limited mintage coins, proof sets, all at even higher premiums. And here's what happens in your mind. You start thinking, well, if I'm going to buy silver, I might as well buy the nice stuff, right? I might as well get the coins that look good, that have some collectability, that might appreciate beyond just the silver content. And that logic sounds reasonable. It really does, except it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what you're actually doing when you stack silver. See, when you buy a government-issued silver coin, let's say an American Silver Eagle, you're not just paying for an ounce of silver. You're paying for the minting process. You're paying for the government guarantee. You're paying for the recognizability. You're paying for the design. All of that gets baked into the premium. And right now, depending on market conditions, you might be paying anywhere from 30 to 50% over the spot price of silver just to own that particular coin. Now, is an American Silver Eagle a bad purchase? No, absolutely not. They're beautiful coins. They're highly liquid. They're recognized everywhere. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. Are you stacking silver to collect coins, or are you stacking silver to accumulate ounces? Because if your goal is to accumulate as many ounces of silver as possible with the money you have available, paying a 50% premium means you're getting 50% less silver. It's that simple. If you have $1,000 to spend and you buy silver at a 50% premium, you're getting the same amount of actual silver as someone who spent $667 on generic rounds. You just paid $333 for packaging. And look, I get it. There's something psychologically satisfying about owning recognizable coins. There's something that feels more official, more real, about having government-issued silver in your hand. But you need to understand what you're trading for that feeling. You're trading ounces. You're trading weight. You're trading the actual thing that has value. Let me give you another example. There's a guy I know, let's call him Tom. Tom started stacking around the same time as Mike. But Tom took a different approach. Tom decided he was going to focus purely on weight. He didn't care what the silver looked like. He didn't care if it had a fancy design or a government seal. He just wanted ounces. So while Mike was buying American silver eagles and Canadian maple leafs, Tom was buying generic rounds and bars from reputable mints. Same purity, same silver content. But Tom was paying premiums of 15 to 20% instead of 40 to 50%. Over the course of a year, both guys spent about $15,000. Mike ended up with roughly 250 ounces of silver. Tom ended up with over 350 ounces. Same money, same time period, but Tom has 100 more ounces of silver. And here's the kicker. When silver prices spiked and both of them decided to sell a portion of their stack, guess what happened? The dealer didn't care that Mike had American silver eagles. The dealer didn't pay him extra for the fancy packaging. The dealer looked at the silver content, checked the spot price, and made an offer based on weight. Tom got the same price per ounce that Mike got, but Tom had 100 more ounces to sell. That's real money. That's real wealth. And that's the difference between understanding what you're actually buying and just following what everyone else seems to be doing. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, but wait, don't government coins have better resale value? Don't they command higher premiums when you sell? And the answer is, sometimes. In certain markets, under certain conditions, yes, you might get a slightly better price for an American silver eagle than you would for a generic round, but that premium you get back is almost never as high as the premium you paid. Almost never. Think about it like buying a new car. The moment you drive it off the lot, it loses value. Not because it's a worse car, but because you paid retail and now you're selling wholesale. The same thing happens with high premium silver. You pay retail premiums to acquire it, but when you sell, you're selling into a wholesale market. The dealer needs to make money too. So that premium you paid, it evaporates. And here's something else that most new stackers don't realize. The premium you pay on silver isn't static. It changes based on market conditions. When silver prices are rising and demand is high, premiums tend to compress. When silver prices are falling and demand is low, premiums tend to expand. So if you bought high premium coins during a period of low demand, and you try to sell during a period of high demand when premiums have compressed, you're getting hit twice. You paid a high premium to buy, and you're selling into a low premium environment. This is exactly what happened to Mike. He bought most of his silver when prices were relatively low, and premiums were relatively high. Then when prices spiked and he wanted to take some profit, premiums had compressed because everyone was selling. The dealer looked at his American silver eagles, acknowledged they were nice coins, and offered him spot plus $2. Mike had paid spot plus $12 to acquire them. Now, does this mean you should never buy government-issued coins? No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you need to understand what you're buying and why. If you're buying American silver eagles because you want the recognizability, because you want the government guarantee, because you plan to hold them for decades, and you value the peace of mind that comes with owning official government silver, fine. That's a legitimate reason. But don't buy them thinking you're making a smart financial decision purely based on future resale value, because the math doesn't support that. Here's what I recommend for new stackers. Start with weight. Build your foundation with low premium silver. Generic rounds from reputable mints. Bars from recognized refiners. Focus on accumulating ounces. Get your stack to a size where you actually have meaningful wealth stored in physical silver. And then, if you want to add some government coins for diversification or personal preference, go ahead. But build the foundation first. Because here's the thing about silver. It's not just an investment. It's insurance. It's a hedge against currency devaluation, against inflation, against systemic financial risk. And when you're buying insurance, you want as much coverage as possible for the money you're spending. You don't pay extra for insurance that has a prettier certificate. You pay for coverage. Let me tell you about another trap that catches new stackers. The collectability trap. This is related to the premium trap, but it's slightly different. This is when you start buying silver based on mintage numbers, special designs, limited editions, all of that stuff. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with collecting silver. But you need to be honest with yourself about what you're doing. If you're collecting, you're in a different game than stacking. Collecting is about rarity, about condition, about finding pieces that other collectors want. Stacking is about accumulating wealth in physical form. and the skills and strategies for each are completely different. I've seen people spend thousands of dollars on limited edition silver rounds because the mintage was only 5,000 pieces, or because it had a special design, or because it was part of a series, and they convince themselves that this is a smart investment, because surely, with such a limited mintage, the value will go up. Except it almost never does. Not in any meaningful way. See, the collectible coin market is driven by collector demand, and collector demand is fickle. What's hot today is forgotten tomorrow. That limited edition round that you paid a massive premium for, in 5 years, there's a good chance nobody cares about it anymore. The mintage is still limited. The design is still special. But if collectors have moved on to the next thing, your premium has evaporated. Meanwhile, the guy who bought generic silver has the same amount of silver you have, except he paid less for it. And when the financial system is under stress, when people are scrambling for real assets, nobody cares about mintage numbers. They care about weight, they care about purity, they care about silver content. This brings me to another critical point: liquidity. When you're stacking silver, you need to think about liquidity. How easy is it to sell what you're buying? How quickly can you convert it back to cash if you need to? And what kind of price are you going to get? Generic rounds and bars from recognized mints are highly liquid. Any dealer will buy them. The pricing is straightforward. It's based on weight and purity. There's no subjective evaluation of condition or rarity. It's simple. High premium collectible pieces, much less liquid. You might need to find a specific buyer who cares about what you have. You might need to wait for the right market conditions. You might need to accept a significant discount just to move the piece. And in a crisis situation, when you actually need to access the value of your silver quickly, that lack of liquidity can be devastating. I want to talk about another mistake I see constantly: buying silver in the wrong sizes. This might seem like a minor detail, but it can have a huge impact on your ability to use your silver effectively. A lot of new stackers, they see a 10-ounce bar or a 100-ounce bar, and they think, great, I'm getting more silver at once, the premium per ounce is lower, this is efficient. And from a pure acquisition standpoint, yes, larger bars often have lower premiums per ounce. But here's what you're not thinking about: divisibility. If you need to sell some silver, or if you need to use silver in a barter situation, or if you just want to take some profit on a portion of your stack, having all your silver in large bars is a problem. You can't sell half of a 10-ounce bar, you have to sell the whole thing. And if you only need the value of 5 ounces, you've just sold twice as much as you wanted to. This is why I always recommend that the core of your stack should be 1-ounce pieces, rounds, coins, whatever, but 1-ounce denominations. Because 1 ounce is divisible enough to be useful, but large enough that you're not paying excessive premiums. It gives you flexibility. Now, should you have some larger bars? Sure. If you're stacking significant amounts of silver, having some 10-ounce or even 100-ounce bars makes sense for efficient storage and lower premiums. But they shouldn't be the foundation of your stack. The foundation should be 1-ounce pieces that give you maximum flexibility. And on the flip side, I see people buying fractional silver, half-ounce rounds, quarter-ounce rounds, even 10th-ounce pieces. And the premiums on these are insane. You're often paying 50 to 100% over spot for fractional silver. And the argument is always, well, I want to be able to make small transactions. I want to be able to barter with silver in a crisis. Here's the reality. If we're in a situation where you're bartering with silver, the person you're trading with isn't going to care if your silver is in 10th-ounce pieces or 1-ounce pieces. They're going to care about the total weight. And you can make change with other goods or services. You don't need to pay 100% premium for the privilege of having pre-divided silver. Think about it this way. If you spend $1,000 on fractional silver at 100% premium, you're getting the same amount of actual silver as someone who spent $500 on 1-ounce rounds. You just paid $500 for convenience that you probably won't ever need. Now let me shift gears and talk about something that's even more important than premiums or sizes or any of that: storage and security. Because you can make all the right decisions about what silver to buy, but if you don't store it properly, if you don't secure it properly, none of that matters. I've talked to people who've had their entire stack stolen because they didn't think through security. I've talked to people who've lost silver to water damage, to fire, to simple misplacement. And it's heartbreaking, because that's real wealth that's just gone. Here's the thing about physical silver. It's physical. That's the whole point. It's not a number on a screen. It's not a promise from a bank. It's real, tangible wealth that you can hold in your hand. But that also means it's vulnerable to physical threats. Theft, damage, loss. You need to plan for that. And this is where a lot of new stackers make a critical mistake. They think, I'll just keep it at home, I'll hide it somewhere, it'll be fine. And maybe it will be, but maybe it won't. Because if someone breaks into your house, where's the first place they're going to look? Your bedroom, your closet, your safe if you have one. All the obvious places. Professional thieves know what to look for. They know where people hide valuables. And if they have any reason to believe you own precious metals, they're going to tear your house apart looking for it. And even if you've hidden it well, even if they don't find it, you're going to come home to a destroyed house, and the constant fear that maybe they did find it, maybe they'll come back, maybe you're not safe anymore. This is why I always recommend a layered approach to storage. Keep some silver at home for immediate access, but not all of it, not even most of it. Keep enough that you can access it quickly if you need to, but not so much that losing it would be devastating. For the bulk of your stack, you need to think about more secure options. A safe deposit box at a bank, a private vault facility, a well-hidden location that's not in your primary residence, somewhere that's secure, that's insured, that's not going to be the first place someone looks. And I know what some of you are thinking, but if I keep my silver in a bank, doesn't that defeat the purpose? Isn't the whole point of physical silver that it's outside the banking system? And yes, there's some truth to that. But you need to balance ideological purity with practical security. A safe deposit box at a bank is still your property. You still have physical possession. The bank can't lend it out or rehypothecate it. It's just stored in a more secure location than your sock drawer. Now, if you're really concerned about bank access, if you're worried about bank holidays or capital controls or any of that, fine. Use a private vault facility. There are companies that specialize in precious metals storage. They're not banks. They're not part of the traditional financial system. They just provide secure storage. Do your research, find a reputable one, and use them. The point is, don't keep all your silver in one place. Diversify your storage. Because if something happens to one location, you haven't lost everything. This is basic risk management, and it's something that a lot of new stackers don't think about until it's too late. Let me talk about another trap, the timing trap. This is when new stackers try to time the silver market. They wait for dips. They try to buy at the absolute bottom. They convince themselves that if they just wait a little longer, they'll get a better price. And here's the problem with that. You can't time the silver market. Nobody can. Not consistently. Not reliably. The people who tell you they can are either lying or delusional. Silver prices are influenced by so many factors. Industrial demand, investment demand, currency movements, geopolitical events, central bank policies, mining production, recycling rates. It's impossibly complex. So what happens when you try to time it? You wait. And while you're waiting, prices go up. And you think, well, I'll wait for it to come back down. And it doesn't. It keeps going up. And now you're in this psychological trap where you can't bring yourself to buy because you feel like you missed the opportunity. You feel like buying now would be admitting you were wrong to wait. Meanwhile, the person who just started buying consistently, who didn't try to time anything, who just accumulated ounces on a regular schedule regardless of price, they've been building their stack, they've been averaging in, and over time their average cost is probably pretty close to the average price. They didn't get the absolute bottom, but they didn't miss the boat either. This is called dollar cost averaging, and it's one of the most powerful strategies for building a silver stack. You decide how much you can afford to invest in silver each month, and then you buy that amount every month, regardless of price. Some months you'll buy when prices are high. Some months you'll buy when prices are low. But over time, you'll average out to a reasonable cost basis. And more importantly, you'll actually be accumulating silver instead of just watching prices and waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Now let me address something that I know is on a lot of people's minds, the question of whether silver is actually going to go up in value. Because you can avoid all the traps I've talked about, you can stack smart, you can store securely, but if silver doesn't appreciate, what's the point? And here's my answer to that. If you're stacking silver purely as a speculation, purely because you think the price is going to go up and you're going to make money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Silver is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a lottery ticket, it's wealth preservation. The reason to own silver is because it's real money. It's been money for thousands of years. It has intrinsic value. It can't be printed by central banks. It can't be devalued by government policy. It's a store of value that exists outside the traditional financial system. Will the price of silver go up? Probably. The fundamentals are incredibly strong. Industrial demand is increasing. Investment demand is increasing. Mine production is struggling to keep up. Central banks around the world are moving away from the dollar. The conditions for a significant silver price increase are all in place. But even if the price doesn't go up, even if silver just maintains its purchasing power, that's still valuable. Because everything else is losing purchasing power. The dollar is losing purchasing power. Bonds are losing purchasing power. Even real estate in many markets is losing purchasing power when you account for maintenance costs and property taxes and all the rest. Silver maintains its value. That's the point. It's insurance against the devaluation of everything else. And if it happens to appreciate significantly, that's a bonus. But it's not the primary reason to own it. Let me tell you one more story before we wrap this up. There's a guy I know, let's call him David. David started stacking silver about 10 years ago. He didn't have a lot of money. He was working a regular job, supporting a family, living paycheck to paycheck like most people. But he decided he was going to put $50 a month into silver. Just $50. That's it. He didn't try to time the market. He didn't chase premiums. He didn't buy collectibles. He just bought generic silver rounds every month, $50 worth. Some months that was 2 ounces. Some months it was 3 ounces. Depended on the price. But he was consistent. 10 years later, David has over 300 ounces of silver. He's got real wealth stored in physical form. Wealth that's outside the banking system, that can't be seized or frozen or devalued by government policy. And he built it $50 at a time. That's the power of consistency. That's the power of stacking smart. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to make perfect decisions. You just need to be consistent, avoid the traps, and focus on accumulating ounces. Now, before we close out, I want to mention something for those of you who are thinking about your retirement. If you're sitting on retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, and you're concerned about the direction of the economy, about inflation, about the stability of the financial system, there are ways to get physical precious metals into those accounts. It's called a gold IRA, and it allows you to hold physical gold and silver in a tax-advantaged retirement account. I've put together information on how this works. It's in the description. If you've got significant retirement savings and you want to explore options for protecting that wealth with physical metals, check it out. It's worth understanding your options, especially in the current economic environment. The bottom line is this: silver stacking is one of the smartest things you can do to protect your wealth. But like anything else, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way. The wrong way costs you money, costs you ounces, and leaves you vulnerable. The right way builds real wealth, gives you security, and positions you to weather whatever economic storms are coming. Avoid the premium trap. Don't chase collectibles. Focus on weight. Buy in divisible sizes. Store securely. Be consistent. And don't try to time the market. Do those things, and you'll be ahead of 90% of stackers out there. And if you've made it this far, if you've watched this whole video, I want to offer you something. That free guide I mentioned earlier, it's in the description. But for those of you who've stuck with me to the end, there's something else. If you're an American retiree with at least $100,000 in retirement accounts, you can schedule a free one-on-one educational web conference. No obligation, no sales pitch. Just education on how to protect your retirement savings with physical precious metals. Mention you watch this video and you'll get access. It's only available to qualified individuals, but if that's you, take advantage of it. The world is changing. The financial system is under stress. The dollar is losing its status as the global reserve currency. Central banks are accumulating gold at record rates. Industrial demand for silver is exploding while mine production struggles. The smart money is moving into physical precious metals. The question is, are you going to be part of that move, or are you going to wait until everyone else has already figured it out? Stack smart, stack consistently, and avoid the traps that catch everyone else. Your future self will thank you.